please step forward? Please have a seat. Dr. Youth. That's what we're talking about. The original Dr. Youth. Back in 1983, I was actually alive. A Doctor Who fan, a little kid. I was allowed to stay up one Sunday night, because I had to go to school the next day, to watch one special episode. Episode Caves of Androzani. It was the regeneration episode with Peter Davison. Held a special place in my heart. When Peter Davison was 29, he took over the role of Doctor Who. Tom Baker, the preceding Doctor, was around 47 at the time. At 29, Peter Davison was by far the youngest actor to play the role of the Doctor. Dr. Youth. How would the show go forward with such a young Doctor? Would it work? Could it work? Would the old fans like it? Would new fans come on board? Hello, Caves of Androzani. Mr. Davison played the role of Doctor with enthusiasm and vigor. During his time, we saw the Doctor battle Daleks, Cybermen, the Master, and Sea Devils even, and the Black Guardian. We also saw the 5 Doctors work together to storm the Tower of Rassilon. It was great enthusiasm that I would like to introduce Mr. Peter Davison to speak with you today. Mr. Peter Davison, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you all feeling? Did you have a late night? It's party, party, party in this place. Hi, nice to be here.
It's fantastic to have you here, sir. I'll start off with some questions, and not many questions, because I know the audience is definitely not here to see me ask questions, and they want to ask questions themselves. I'll start off with one of the classics. Which is your favorite episode of all time, sir?
Do you mean of mine or of any?
Any.
Well, I suppose I have to be biased towards me, and because I know Colin Baker would. So I would say Caves of Androzani is my favourite. It's probably Colin's as well, actually. For me, I thought it was a fantastic episode, and it was a great episode to go out on. We had a fantastic director in Graham Harper and a brilliant writer in Bob Holmes and a great cast. Wasn't so sure about the very last shot of the episode. Kind of spoiled it for me, but and apart from my brilliant regeneration acting having the focus stolen by Nicola Bryant's cleavage, it was I was very happy with it. I thought it was a great episode, and I had a really stylistic.
Okay.
He's ticked that one off.
Okay. I only have a few to ask. Here's a question that's asked. When you finished your time as a doctor, did you get to keep the costume, and did you ever just walk around the neighborhood wearing it?
I got to steal the costume. Unfortunately, that means it's not really of much use to me, apart from the fact I can sit and look in it. And very often, various people, 2 very well-known people, when they came round to our house for lunch and discovered that I still had the costume, insisted on trying it on. And those 2 people were Stephen Moffat and David Tennant. I have a picture on my phone, actually. If you come, which I'm only going to show you if you come and get an autograph of David Tennant in my costume. Anyway, no, yes, I do have. I have most of the costume. I did lose. I tragically lost one bit of it earlier on the jumper when I wore it to a party in way back in the 90s. I don't know what the hell happened to that party. Somehow I ended up without my jumper. But the trouble is, I think theoretically it still belongs to the BBC. I just hope no one's recording this interview this morning, but they're not having it back.
I'm going to ask about the question of one of your contemporaries at the same time. The Fifth Doctor versus Han Solo. Who would win and why?
Who'd win? Well, I'd win initially. The danger would be he'd come back right at the end and steal the thunder. But I think I could vanquish him, because he initially is a bit of a coward, isn't he, Han Solo? And then he turns out to be brave and saves the day. I go for the Doctor, because he has a time machine. It doesn't work very well, but he has a time machine.
Which would you prefer, a chameleon or C-3PO?
Well, I'm going to be disloyal here. I'd say C-3PO, because a chameleon never really worked. I mean, it was a nice idea, but when John Nathan Turner came to me and said, "Oh, we've got this fantastic thing. We're going to have a robot in this episode coming out, The King's Demons," and I said, "Really, a robot?" He said, "Yes, it's only you talk to it, and then it talks back to you." I said, "Can it walk?" He said, "Well, no, it can't actually walk, but it can move its head and move its mouth." And in between the time he told me that, and apparently John had seen a demonstration of Chameleon down at the workshop that built it, it utterly broke down. And so the only thing it could do was play literally an audio cassette back, and we had to fit our lines in between the gaps. And if we weren't quick enough, he would start replying to our line, our questions before we finished them. And in the end, I think at the end of the episode, they decided to vanquish Chameleon to one of the back rooms of the TARDIS. And then I remember saying, "Are we just going to leave it in the back room of the TARDIS and never mention it again?" So I think then it was completely got rid of. It wasn't an enormous success. It was in those days, really, when you shouldn't try and have a mechanical robot. You really should stick to people dressed up as robots. They work much better. And it provides work for hard-up actors.
As you know, we talked before, I'm an attorney, and I need to ask you a nice convoluted question. How is it being both the doctor's father-in-law, and having a doctor's daughter at the same time, and a grandchild, too?
It's very confusing. There was a wonderful moment at the wedding where I was obviously giving the father of the bride speech. And, I obviously brought this up, the fact that my daughter was marrying the 10th Doctor. I was the 5th Doctor. So, in fact, her father was a doctor, her husband was a doctor. But then again, we're the same person. So, it got to the point where I was about to say that she'd actually married me, and I thought it was best that I stop. It can get confusing at times. It's very nice, though. I always put it down to the fact that, David, he's a fantastic guy, and he's really, really nice, and he's not sort of arrogant at all about the fact that he was playing the Doctor, and he found it very difficult, I think, when he sort of, had girlfriends. They were always slightly intimidated by him. Until he met Georgia, who really wasn't intimidated by him at all. So, "Oh, my dad's a doctor. Why are you so special?" So I think that kind of appealed to him, and was very refreshing.
I'm lucky enough to actually have a prop in front of me.
That's good, actually.
Actually,
very good likeness of me.
I can't take any credit for it. It was presented to me this morning, but for people in the audience, I can ask this: was your outfit by choice, or what input did you provide in making the outfit?
Well, I provided the idea. It wasn't my design by any means. John Nathan Turner said to me, what we need is something younger and eccentric. And I thought that cricket pretty much fitted the bill, being a sporty game and a very eccentric game. I've tried to explain it to Americans. One person goes out, one person goes in until they're out, then they come in, and then another person goes out until they're out, then they come in. It's very complex, but a wonderful game. I still have no idea what's going on in a baseball game. And people complain about cricket, but it seems to me that in a baseball game, you miss the ball 90% of the time. or you hit it over your head and it goes on a foul ball or something. Anyway, it's a great game, but what I'm saying is, if it's your game, your sort of country's game, you love it. You love it even when nothing's really happening. And that's the great thing about cricket. You can just sit there and watch it and really nothing happens. It's fascinating. Anyway, so I thought it would be a good costume to have my character based on. But I would have preferred, to be honest with you, the idea that the Doctor goes into his little wardrobe where all the odds and ends of outfits are and just picks things off the shelf, off the peg, and puts them on. But John wanted very much a designed outfit. It was probably a bit too designed for me, but I was very happy and it was very comfortable. And it's the most brilliant thing about playing Doctor Who is you never have to change costume. Very lazy. You just walk around from episode to episode in exactly the same outfit.
This kind of ties into an earlier question. What are your thoughts on the new series? And do you think there might be a reality series called The Doctor's Family?
Funnily enough, David and Georgie were around our house the other day, and I actually suggested that to them. I said, because I was listening to them, because it was like Georgie would be announcing things to us, like, oh, this is going to happen, we're doing this, and then David would be going, no, we're not, are we? Are we doing that? So yeah, we're going on holiday on the 23rd of August. Are we going in November? I said, no, we're going. So I said, you really ought to have a reality camera crew around your house. Of course, they're the most unlikeliest family to have that, because they're actually very, very private, and they just like to, live a very ordinary day-to-day life. But the idea of, a Doctor Who reality program is kind of interesting, isn't it? Sadly, you're never going to see it.
Maybe sometime. Did you ever feel, we're back to you now, did you ever feel crowded in the TARDIS with Nyssa and Adric and Tegan, all full-grown adults, wandering around with you throughout time and space?
Yeah, I thought actually, I think maybe 3 is maybe one too many, which is maybe why we lost one of them along the way. No, it wasn't it was not my fault. And it's never my fault, quite right. And the method of departure was not my idea. So I have to admit, I thought it was a rather good one. Only because, it was, I know it was quite traumatic, and I appreciate that now. At the time, it seemed like a very good way of suddenly bringing the program, very much down to earth and showing that bad things can happen. I didn't realise how much I'd traumatised people until many years later, when the new series had come back and there was a story with Rose. And it was rumoured over in Britain that she was going to die. Her character was going to die. In fact, I think actually the episode may have been called something like The Death of Rose. I can't quite remember. But it was in the papers. Oh, Rose is going to die. And my children who were then, I suppose, about 5 and 7 or something like that, were desperately in love with Rose. Aww. So I sent an email to Russell T. Davis, who was the producer of the show, and said, please, could you tell me if Rose dies in the next week's episode, because I can't let my children watch if that's the case. And of course, Russell, who brought the series back and had grown up watching Doctor Who, he sent me back a very curt email which just said, you killed Adric, what do you care? So I'd like to apologise now to anyone who's traumatised by the death of Adric. He was pretty traumatised by it, actually, mainly because it meant he could never return to the series, although oddly he did about 2 stories later as a ghost. So it didn't mean the end of Adric at all. But it was a bit crowded, but it was not my choice as to... Actually, maybe it was my choice as to who was to leave. I don't know, I can't remember. But I probably, only because, Adric wanted to go home, didn't he? And he died a hero's death. And the other 2 were girls. not that I was allowed to touch them in any shape or form. In fact, I was very clearly told the only companion I was allowed to put my arm around was Adric. How times have changed, eh?
That was going to lead me into my next question, trying to be as PC as I could, which was going to be, who's your favorite companion? And it doesn't even have to be one of yours.
Well, it's a multiple answer, this, really. It's a very difficult one. I love Janet Fielding dearly, and she's even now a great friend of mine. I didn't think they quite got her character right. They had the elements there, but she was just feisty and didn't want to be there, and that was kind of it. I did prefer Nissa as a character, I have to be honest with you, because I think she complemented the Doctor very nicely and seemed to be on the Doctor's side most of the time, which made me feel a lot better. However, I have to say, I personally don't think they ever quite got the companions right until Rose. I think they struggled for years. You know, the intention was there. They knew that they didn't want the companion or assistant, as they probably were then better known, just to be a kind of, a convenience of the story. In other words, just to say, "Oh, help me, Doctor," or "Where are we, Doctor?" They wanted to make them more interesting. I just think they went about it from the outside in. They kind of decided she's feisty, and then just wrote a part. Whereas with Rose, it seems they work from the inside out. And there's an argument, which I think is probably true, that when the series came back in 2005, in our first season, almost the most important character was Rose. Yeah. Because she was very much, you did absolutely see the Doctor through her eyes, and she was, every one of us viewers who were watching the programme, and I think she swept us along. She did a brilliant job.
I'm going to start the questions from the audience, but the way we're going to do this is our two Time Lords, who have been kind enough to join us, are going to walk through the audience. So they're going to step down right now and take audience questions. Make sure the mics are on.
Excellent. The Time Lords have left the stage. I always worry when they're about. I feel like I might go on trial any moment.
In the meantime, I'd like to go 1 second non-Doctor Who, only because one of my friends' family is very British, and they want to tell Mr. Davison thank you for his role as Tristan Farnan on All Creatures Great and Small. From the son of a Yorkshire gal whose older brother Brian took his pet to Alf White, DVM, the real name of the author who wrote on their pseudonym James Harriet.
Yeah.
So they'd like to say thank you for that.
Thank you very much. No, it was a great pleasure to do that series, and really, when I got the part as the Doctor, I remember that the BBC had a chat show, a lunchtime show, and they invited various people on to give suggestions as to how I should play the Doctor. They obviously thought I needed help. One kid got up and said, I think you should be like Tristan, but brave. And that was really how I want to base my character on. Tristan, but brave.
Do we have our first audience question?
I'll get us started. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure.
I think one of the sweetest part of the 50th anniversary was your 5-ish Doctors. So, very disappointed that it wasn't on the anniversary DVD or Blu-ray. I just would have loved to have seen it. Can you talk a little bit about that and share? It was just amazing.
I can talk at great length about it. I mean, it was... it is probably the best year of my life doing that thing and having the 50th anniversary celebrations. By the way, incidentally, it will be on a DVD. It is coming out as an extra on the... I know you've probably got this, so you probably have to buy it again. But it's on the deluxe edition of the 8th series, which will be released at some point in the coming year. But that is an extra on that, so it will be released, which I'm very happy about. No, it was, it started in such a tiny, microscopic way, this. A few years ago, I did a short video. I was meant to go to the Gallifrey convention in Los Angeles, and I couldn't go. So I did a short, so Sean, who runs it, said, could you just send a message, saying you're sorry you can't be there, because I got a part in a musical. So I did the short video, and it turned into quite a funny little video about apologising for not being there, and it turned out I managed to get my future son-in-law in it as well, as well as various other people. And then when I went to Gallifrey the following year, I did another video. So I had was kind of excited by doing these little things. And then when I did a convention about 2 years ago, I can't even remember where it was now, but I was asked, as we were asked all the time at that point, you know, are you going to be in the 50th anniversary special? And without thinking, I said, well, if I'm not, I'm damn well going to make my own. Now, I didn't think too much about this until I went to another convention about a month later, and someone got up and said, oh, apparently, if you're not in the 50th anniversary special, you're going to make your own, is that right? And I realized at that point that I was going to have to make my own. And I had an idea in my head, and it kind of grew and grew, and then I realized that rather than just have me trying to get into the 50th anniversary special, it'd be much better if it was Colin and Sylvester as well, and indeed Paul. So I got in touch with all of them and said, you know, would you, you know, help me out with this thing? And they all were very happy, went along with it. I don't think it was, at that point, that high on their priority, because they were just sort of saying, oh, well, Peter wants to do this thing, we'll help him out. So we had a script, and then it got longer and longer, and then one day Sylvester came back to me and said, Peter, I still want to help you with the video if I can, but it's difficult because I'm filming The Hobbit in New Zealand. So I thought, hang on. So I thought, well, I'll write a little scene, just for the hell of it, with Peter Jackson in it. And then I thought, I'll send it to him to see what he says. It didn't have to have Peter Jackson in it. It could have just been someone in the back of someone's head going, where is he? Or whatever. But I sent it to Peter Jackson, and he sent an email back pretty much straight away and said, yes, I'd be very happy to be in it, and I'll even get Ian McKellen in it too. And then by this time the thing was getting a bit big, so I got, sorry, stop me if I'm boring you.
No!
So then by this time it was getting too much for me, so I got Georgia, my daughter, on board as producer. She was very, very good. And she rang me up one day and she said, I just read something in the paper that John Barrowman's not, you know, very unhappy or very upset that he's not in the 50th anniversary special. So I thought, aha. And it just went on like that, and it just got longer and longer. Well, not longer and longer, not too long, I don't think, but it just got more and more sort of, you know, complex, and people had, you know, suggested bits, and if they worked, I put them in. And then we embarked on the filming process, which proved quite difficult because of everyone's availability. It was very difficult to get, you know, we wanted Matt in it, and you know, we wanted David in it, and we wanted Jenna in it. And also we were trying to juggle Colin and Sylvester and Paul, because, you know, this was the 50th anniversary year, and they were off, heaven knows where. And so we managed to set up certain days, but it was getting very difficult. Paul, who I would love to have been in it more, but he, as is in the script, sent me an email saying, I'm sorry, I've got a job in Ireland. so he wasn't there for some of it, so I thought, well, I'll just make a joke of the fact that Paul's always got a job. He's always fun. But then I think what happened, and this was what was really nice about it, was as the time went on, both Colin and Sylvester kind of ramped it up in the importance in that they saw it. You know, so in other words, from being quite low priority, they suddenly thought that this is really a good thing to be doing. And I'm really not saying this. This is honestly the truth. And I know it's going to sound like I'm just crawling up your bottoms, but I'm not really. You know, the line where we put in, and it was we said it's a joke in there when they said to me, you know, why are we doing this? And I say, well, for the fans. And we all go, for the fans. But actually, it kind of was. Because, you know, and I think the reason that, and I'm very happy that an enormous number of people liked it, far more than I ever thought would. But the reality of it was, we made it for the people who wanted to see us in the 50th anniversary and weren't going to do it.
I don't want to hog it, but I just want to say that from my perspective, it sounds like a lot, it completed the circle on the 50th anniversary. I mean, I love the Day of the Doctor, but by having that, it felt like you'd acknowledged all 50 years, all the different people, all inclusive. It's amazing the amount of cameos in there, and it truly was the perfect companion to the big thing, and I'm so grateful that you did it.
No, thank you very much. And thanks you.
Hello, Peter. Hi. This kind of goes with what he said. I honestly love the $5. I think you're a comedy genius. What would you feel the BBC and their great wisdom would get you as a writer on this show? What would you do?
I mean, I just don't know. I think it's pretty unlikely, I have to say, unless I anonymously wrote a brilliant script and sent it to them. But I don't know. I'd love to be able to do something like that. I'm not sure I would be able to do it, but yeah, it would certainly be a challenge. Maybe I should just sit down and start writing one, you know, on spec. I don't know, but it's. It might be a bit funny though. I find that's what I enjoyed most, the bits, you know, the funny bits. How about a funny Doctor Who story? Come on, that's funny. Anyway.